Hi there. I am going to show you today how to annotate a poem for IB English. I have done this like a million times, and so I'm going to try to get through this without messing up too much and hopefully without any profanity. So let's get started. We are going to be annotating the text, Let America Be America Again by Langston Hughes. When I selected this, I thought that you would be comfortable with the topic because we've just finished reading The Great Gatsby. I thought it was important to bring in Langston Hughes, a poet from the same time that Fitzgerald is writing. And so we're getting some exposure to some other voices from this era. The topic is going to address the American dream, which I think that it'll be a good comparison text for you. And so we're going to go ahead and just jump in. I'll let you know usually when I'm annotating a text that I don't do it on a screen like this. I usually do it pen and paper, and it's messy, but I figured for just this instruction that I would use a doc. So hopefully that translates well for you. When I go through and annotate a text, there's a lot of stuff that's swirling around my head. It can be structure, it can be devices, it can be the style of the author. So, I'm coming to this table with a little bit of an advantage because I've done this so many times. But I'm going to instruct you to kind of how this process looks. And hopefully I illuminate some things that you can then bring into your own annotations. So we start off with the title, Let America Be America Again. And so the first thing that I notice is the word let. And so you see over here in my annotations that who is Hughes speaking? Who is Hughes, or who's the speaker asking? I think the word let is pretty significant because it looks like the speaker doesn't have access to that already and is needing to ask permission. So I think that word sets off with a very interesting tone. We also see the word again. Why again? Did it occur once? When did that happen? Is there an inkling of hope in that title that something will return? I also think that the words America Be America, it challenges us to think about what is defined as America. What is the speaker defining as America? So as we get into the first stanza, you notice I'm using the jargon of poetry analysis, using stanza. You'll hear me use quite a bit of those terms as we discuss. But the stanza is a quatrain, and I will tell you, when I start annotating a poem, if I'm a little nervous about getting into the interpretation of the language, I can turn quickly to the structure of poetry. So I know I see a quatrain, which is four lines of poetry. There's your quatrain. It's a stanza. And so those things I can start noticing because they're not as subjective as it is when we start looking into language. I also started looking to the rhyme scheme. Rhyme scheme has to deal with the end rhyme of each line of poetry. So I use the word again is my A rhyme. And then I look at B. Well, B doesn't rhyme with again, so that becomes my B rhyme. Plain. Plain doesn't, is not a perfect rhyme to again. It is close enough. So we look at what is, would be back to the A rhyme. And then we have the word free, and free rhymes with B. And so that's a B rhyme. So I start seeing an established rhyme scheme to start off. And I kind of wondered, and you could see in my question down here, why is it a formal rhyme scheme? We're looking at, more modern poetry. What's the purpose of that formal rhyme scheme? All right, so I get through, let America be America again. Let it be the dream it used to be. Well, we've just read Gatsby, so dream is already right there in my head towards the surface. So I start thinking about, what exactly is being defined as the dream? Whose dream? So those are, you notice I'm writing questions early on that most likely that will be answered as I continue reading. I also see the repetition. I'll tell you, repetition is important to consider when you're doing poetry analysis. So I see let being repeated over. And again, it kind of ties me back to my title analysis of going, okay, is this person having to ask permission? Why don't they have access to it already? And then we see the technique of enjambment. Let it be the pioneer on the plain seeking a home where he himself is free. Enjambment is the linking of or continuing of one line on to the next. You notice these two lines stop at the end of the line. This third and fourth line enjam, meaning they continue on. So I might think about, why do those two lines work together? What's being pronounced there? I also saw a key word there, pioneer. I think pioneer is an interesting word because we look at, all right, a pioneer, someone looking for something better, looking to have some control over their destiny and access to some more options. So we see that being established there in that first stanza. Then we see a little bit of a difference here. Visually, I've used the color there, but you see now you kind of have a different voice come in here. America was never America to me, and it's parenthetical. So it makes me question, do I see a shift in the narrator? Is it a shift in perspective by our one narrator? And I think this line is interesting in its juxtapositioning with the first stanza, where it's saying, let America exist, let it be what we want it to be. And then you have a voice that very understatedly says, America was never America to me. So that makes me kind of wonder, was it just never great to this speaker? You can see over here, though, I've marked, it's now returned to a B rhyme. Then I go into the next stanza, let America be the dream, the dreamers dreamed. Well, first thing I notice is the use of alliteration. All right, alliteration is usually linking ideas together with that initial sound, the repetition of that initial sound. So dream, the dreamers dream. So again, it's emphasized that motif of the dream. Let it be that strong, great strong land of love where kings connive nor tyrants scheme, that any man be crushed by one above. So when I see there, let it be, again, the word let being repeated again, who isn't letting it? What does it mean? So those are some questions that I am I'm establishing at that point. You notice I don't have answers yet. Questions are great. So again, we see enjambment there, and then we have a different rhyme scheme, CD, CD. So again, establishing that rhyme scheme, looking at the end rhyme there. Again, we see it was never America to me. Again, parenthetical at that point. So we get into the third stanza. Oh, let my land be a land where liberty is crowned with no false patriotic wreath. Alliteration, again, land, liberty. And I think the use of pronouns are really interesting in this text because we see the word my. Later on, you're going to see I, our. So thinking about how ownership is being established in this poem. Let my land be a land where liberty is crowned with no false patriotic wreaths. Lady Liberty, right there, capital L. We notice that's significant. Statue of Liberty is standing there with broken chains at her feet. So we see that someone that has been able to escape that tyranny. It continues on, but I start to see over here a little bit of a change in my rhyme scheme. Still a little formal, but it's B-E, B-E. So I'm still keeping that in the back of my mind of how rhyme scheme is being used. I think opportunity, equality are all being referenced here, which is really reminiscent of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, these technical promises of the American dream. We feel like we take part in that dream and dream those dreams, that we should have access to those things. Equality is in the air when we breathe, meaning it's in the air, it's accessible. And I think in the stanza, what I've noted over here is we've got the authors defining the American dream. I also made a note of this is very lyrical, which is a style of poetry. Lyrical poetry is song-like and in first person. So I see that quatrain has a very lyrical component to it. So again, I'm just starting to note some of the genre types and the technical aspects there. All right, so then we move into this parenthetical statement. There has never been equality for me, nor freedom in this homeland of the free. So again, it's parenthetical. I wonder about how is this message separate from what is seen in above. I think this couplet, you notice I'm using the term couplet, which is 2 lines of rhymed poetry. This couplet is really in reaction to the defined American dream in the stanza above. So I think about equality is repeated. How is equality treated in this stanza versus in this couplet? It makes me kind of wonder, all right, we see a difference in how equality is achieved or treated. And then you see the homeland of the free, which is very reminiscent of Americana at that point. So then we get to this italicized. Now, whenever you see a shift in text or the way that text is presented, something we might want to really note. Who are you that mumbles in the dark? And who are you that draws your veil across the stars? So I think this is intriguing because you see the speaker addressing that mumbling. Are the parenthetical inclusions mumbling? What's the significance of that word mumble? Is it something that someone does with security? Is it a voice that's recognizable or welcome? So I think mumbling is really interesting there. And who are you that draws your veil across the stars? And so here's an allusion to Corinthians, but it talks about, that darkening of reality and, in fantasy that exists, which is very Great Gatsby as well. So these two lines, this couplet also functions as a shift. What's shifting as we are moving on? Because in the upper stanzas, it's speaking out. Now we kind of see a shift of this individual speaking to themselves. So what's going to follow? All right, we come to now a shift in stanza type. So now we've got more lines. We've got 6, so we've got sextets. And obviously we see the I am, the I am, the I am. And that I am is anaphora. And it's the repetition of the starts of sentences, which are usually used to emphasize. But something else I want to point out, because, I am looking at the structure of poetry, I also see the use of what is called iambic pentameter. And that's the meter of the poem. And to show you here, I've highlighted it right up here. Iambic pentameter is an unstressed stress. So unstressed stress. I am, so the way that this would read, I am the poor, white fooled, and pushed apart. I ams are the unstressed stress that's noted right here, that U and that dash. And notice there are 5 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That is what makes iambic pentameter. And so that was the first time I really noticed that. So I've gone back and looked at other lines, that it is sporadically placed throughout this poem, the use of iambic pentameter, which is a formal meter. So that kind of is like, all right, we've got formality in some different places in this poem. All right, so I've already mentioned the repetition of I am. We start seeing affirming up of the knowledge of the self. Where it was earlier, I'm being asked and letting. Now we start seeing this established self being placed here, which contrasts the individual with the idea of America. All right. So when we think of America as that idealism that is presented in those first stanzas, here we start seeing more of the reality of that. The second thing that I think is interesting is that in this section, you see that you have a lot of individuals that are have been exploited by the American dream. So in this initial part of these stanzas, you see different individuals that are individuals of the idea of America, but what it actually, the cost is for the idea of America. And I think the last 2 lines here are really intriguing. And I've changed the color there because you see the anaphora with the I am. So whenever I see a pattern established, then I look to the lines where that pattern stops and what's being emphasized, and finding only the same old stupid plan of dog eat dog or mighty crush mighty crush the weak. The old stupid plan. What an interesting phrase. What is the old stupid plan? Is that the idea of the American dream? And is Hughes redefining that in those 2 lines and connecting it to those who've been exploited?